If I were to come up to you on the street and tell you the creators of indie game hits Bastion and Transistor were making a new game that could be described as Oregon Trail meets NBA Jam, you might be shocked. And not just because a stranger asked you a weird question out of the clear blue, but once you get your hands on this unexpected game though, you'd know right away that this is another amazing experience lovingly crafted by the folks at Supergiant Games. Hey everyone, I'm Darrian P. Mack with the Leaderboard, and today we're going to be making our way through the dangerous and mysterious wastelands as we uncover 7 facts about Pyre. Get out your free throw game now, and let's get started. The development. Before figuring out what project they wanted to make next, Supergiant Games made several rapid prototypes for game concepts before coming across the idea of using defeat as a video game mechanic. They wanted to make a game that forced you to deal with the consequences of being beaten in a fight, as well as the decisions that you as a player had to make, and not just story decisions. Even things as simple as which players from your roster you pick for battle will change the way different characters think of you. After lots of weighing out the matter, they came to the conclusion to use sports as a metaphor for the battle, so they wouldn't have to kill off characters. But they needed a way to connect these skirmishes. That's when they added the visual novel devices, which fed back into the gameplay through RPG elements. This means your decisions in the visual novel segments have an effect on your team's ability to play. Once they had a playable demo they felt comfortable showing to the public, Supergiant Games brought it out to Boston for the 2016 Penny Arcade Expo East. They used this public unveiling not only as an official announcement of the game, but also used this chance to give us regular folk a hands-on spin around Pyre, and used all of the feedback they received to then go back to the lab and further tweak and improve the game under the hood. Visual novel storytelling. Pyre features a huge cast of characters and an incredibly diverse world of creatures and races. For example, one of the races you'll encounter is the Curs, a race of literal dog people, one of whom, the mustachioed rookie, joins your crew. Your role in this world is as an exile who's been cast out of society for some reason, but you don't remember much, and the only way for you to clean the slate and get your life back is to go through a series of challenges known as the Rites, which is basically high fantasy basketball. Your role isn't simply a team member though, as you have a rare gift in the world of Pyre, the ability to read. Your capacity to read means you're the only one who knows how to read the sacred rulebook, which basically means you have to be the team's coach by default. This story of redemption is told through a very detailed and involved visual novel style gameplay system. Anytime a character uses a proper noun or speaks of a specific thing in the dialogue text, you can usually hover over it with your cursor and it'll tell you a brief summary to get you up to speed. This allows the writer to have a huge world that's full of lore and story nuggets to dig up, while not having to bog down the game's dialogue with large exposition dumps. That huge world is written entirely by Greg Kasavin. He is individually responsible for more than 200,000 words of narrative and expository content that appears in the game. The visual novel elements also, as stated earlier, tie into when your team plays in the Rites. Things you say and do have an effect on your team and can either boost or hinder their overall stats. You can also use the currency found around the game called Soul to buy equipable items for your team. Talismans and Masteries. Talismans are equipable items that have stat-altering effects or even new abilities attached to them, like making a team member faster or giving the other team a disadvantage at the beginning of the rite. Either in-game or at the shop ran by a goblin shopkeeper and his dad, you can find new talismans. They can also be upgraded to improve their stat through an item called Stardust, which applied to a talisman can upgrade it anywhere from 1 to 5 levels. Since they have such a huge potential to really give the competitive edge in game, it's absolutely worth investing in Stardust whenever it pops up in the shop. Masteries on the surface seem similar to Talismans, in the sense that they have stat boosting abilities and can give characters new possessive and active abilities. But unlike Talismans, these are permanent upgrades that are also in general far more powerful than equipables. There is a twist though. For each character, there are 2 upgrade paths of masteries that they can follow. Unfortunately, you can only teach a given character a maximum of 4 masteries, and the 2 paths have a total of 8. So picking and choosing what upgrade path to go down, depending on your style of play, is an important part of planning for success. Building your team. Very quickly in Pyre, you gain access to a rickety old black wagon, and you and your ragtag team of Riketeers use it to traverse the world. On your figurative and literal journey to salvation, you'll come across many memorable characters, each with their own well thought out backstories and personalities. Like the vagabond girl, who doesn't remember her name but remembers that it rhymes with gray. This then presents the player with a prompt to pick from a list of names that rhyme with gray, including the name Bay, which even your character seems to question. Each rite you go into has a maximum of 3 players you can have on the court per team, which means some of your players are going to be warming the bench during most of the given battles. That doesn't mean you can just focus on a couple of players. Maintaining a balanced roster is important because some players will be better equipped to fight different enemies than others, and you don't want them too weak to fight when they're needed the most. Also, at key points throughout the game, you will also be forced to give up one of your 3 players, and they'll be brought back into society, which is a bittersweet moment for everyone. It also forces you to think about which team members you'll need to keep behind to help you achieve your own quest for redemption. The rites. The actual rites themselves are fast-paced, usually lasting just a few minutes each. The game court for rites always consists of at least 2 pillars of flames on opposite ends of each team, also known as the titular pyres. There can also be other obstacles in the court which can vary up the shape of the playfield in different ways. Using an isometric perspective, your goal is to destroy the other team's pyre by gaining control over a glowing orb and dunking that bad boy right into the flame. Once you've done that enough times, their pyre is extinguished and the game is won. Going back to that NBA Jam comparison, the rites have an arcade-style sports game feel to them. You control one of your players at a time and swap between them on the fly. And you want to make sure you're doing that enough, because if you don't utilize all 3 of your players to their maximum potential, the later game rivals can really begin to overwhelm you. Another interesting thing is that the story will continue even if you end up losing a rite. So if your team gets pummeled in enough games, it can not only bring down morale, but it can completely change the outcome of your own personal ever-evolving story. The graphics. Pyre has as much detail and polish as the rest of Supergiant Games' catalog, including in the visuals department. Even though half the game has you stuck in a wagon, watching it drive itself along to whatever destination you've picked, you're traveling across a sprawling map and coming across various characters that are seen through portraits that have been beautifully illustrated. As your wagon traverses the world, it also cartoonishly squeezes and stretches while hopping over hills and burrowing through valleys, adding a ton of character to what otherwise would be a very stale part of the game. The world has an impressively varied and detailed look, with countless layers of rolling hills and breathtaking vistas. You can probably take a screenshot while moving across the world at just about any given time, and it looked like a painting you'd see hanging up in a museum. All of the characters in the ride, as well as the black wagon, were 3D animated by Camilo Venegas, who is especially skilled at blending 3D animations with 2D style. Even though there's a very sparse use of 3D graphics, Pyre still manages to have a lot of depth to the visuals, with your wagon hopping into the background and foreground as it traverses along, almost making the game look like a shoebox diorama with painted cardboard cutouts. Soundtrack and audio. The soundtrack for Pyre was created by in-house musician Darrian. He's been an audio director for every game released by Supergiant from the very beginning. Although Pyre is a very different gameplay style from past games, there is a thread of familiarity with the music as well as the visuals. A big part of the game's atmosphere is delivered through the music and audio cues. From day one of the game's production, Darrian was working on sounds and music, making sure everything was in step with the game and helped enforce the tone the developers were aiming for. There's also the fantastic return of Logan Cunningham as the game's narrator, as well as a few other characters like Lyndall the Liar, Dalbert Oldhart, Bertrude, and Ignarius. A lot of his voice work for the game was actually recorded in a closet in his Brooklyn apartment. Like Darrian, Logan has been with Supergiant Games from the start and has been the main voice for each game, with Pyre's narrator being his wildest departure yet. Up until now, his narrator voices were a little more calm and collected than in Pyre, where he's basically gone full-blown Mintalk the Mind Taker. There's points in the game where he sounds like he should be giving a big doomsday speech to somebody like James Bond, which is not to say it's bad, it actually fits the game and is appropriately over the top. To match the over the top style, Pyre is also the biggest voice cast Supergiant has ever used, featuring about 25 voice characters including Logan, Darrian, Sarah Elmale, Cyrus Nemati, and even the creative director Greg Kasavin. As you can see, Pyre has the potential to be another hit for Supergiant Games. It's got charm, fun gameplay, an immersive story system, and a dog with a shaveable mustache, which, if we're being honest, is kinda hard to beat. Once again, I'm Darrian P. Mack, and thanks for watching our 7 facts about Pyre. Is there any info we missed that deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. We have new videos dropping every day, so let us know which game you want us to cover next. Don't forget to click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad. And if you like getting more out of your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.